record session. Hello, everybody. I'm Karen Walker. I'm the Associate Director of Research Development here at ASU, and very happy to see everybody here today. I know it's been a while since we all got together, so for those of you who have been a part of the CI working group, it's great to see you again. And if this is your first CI working group, welcome. We've been getting together for about 6 years now with the goal of developing and sharing best practices in CI in academia, and specifically in the research office or in research development. So I'm thrilled that we have this presentation today, and I'm really grateful to Jill Wiley and Jennifer Craer for organizing this, and to our panelists for participating. And it's due to the great engagement and collaborative spirit of our members that we're able to have a presentation on this topic today. I don't want to take up any more time, so I'll hand it off to Jennifer to get us going.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Craer, and I'm grateful to be here in this room and seeing this room grow. We wanted to bring together a presentation realizing that what competitive intelligence or strategic intelligence or whatever you call what you do could really vary at different institutions, and what you're being asked to do probably varies even more. So hopefully in the spirit of giving everybody a variety of frameworks and maybe a little bit of a purview or a preview into what all of our purviews are, as we have all been asked to do, as we've discussed very different things in this sort of area. And so we're happy to share with you a little bit of what that looks like. Just really quickly in terms of format, we're going to have 3 people do 5-minute presentations, and then we'll open it up for 10 minutes of discussion. We really would love to see your faces and hear from you and answer questions. We're trying to give you just kind of an overview, knowing that maybe you have some more specific questions. Then we'll move into 3 more 5-minute presentations and wrap up with 10 minutes of Q&A. And everybody here who's on the panel is very collaborative in spirit and open to maybe one-on-one conversations as follow-up, and just want to see people succeed and thrive. So if you have other questions that you feel like are more specific to your unit, we encourage you, just in the spirit of collaboration, to please do follow up. We'd be happy to talk with everybody. So with that, I will hand it over to Jill Wiley, who will start us off with the first 5-minute presentation.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jill Wiley. I'm the Assistant Director of the Research Development Office here at the University of Iowa. And you can't tell because we're on Zoom, but I'm extremely pregnant right now, so I will miss Nordab. So I'm just really glad to get to connect with you all and spend some time with some CIRD folks via this forum. And University of Iowa is an R1 institution, and we had about $704 million in external funding thank you to those saying congrats. We had about $704 million in external funding. We're the state's only medical school, so not all of our research is medically focused, but a lot of it is, and that's a picture of campus. Our campuses are kind of split in the middle of the river. On the left-hand side, there is like more the academic side, and on the right-hand side is more the medical, the hospitals and the medical school and public health building and stuff like that. But certainly the research transcends the river there. So the Research Development Office here at Iowa is a group within the Office of the Vice President for Research. We're not that old. We're about 7 years old, and we do typical RD efforts that you're very familiar with. We work to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration through innovation labs and ideas labs. We've administered internal funding, and we still do administer some internal funding. We've hosted info sessions and trainings, and a lot of what we do is to increase grant competitiveness, especially with junior faculty. And we are starting CI efforts to help inform our researchers and leadership. And our CI team is me. I'm the problem. It's me. It's me, and I do this part-time. Like I said, we're launching the effort, and I also have some student workers who are really amazing and awesome, and I'm very lucky to get to work with them. Most of our CI outputs, this shout out to the women's basketball coach, Lisa Bluter, who's led our team to national championship, back-to-back championship games. And of course, you probably haven't heard of her, but maybe you've heard of Caitlin Clark. But I'm a Lisa Bluter fan. So anyway, had to mention that. But most of our CI outputs right now are using CI to target communications for funder visits. And the other output of our program is program analysis for funding opportunities. And I mentioned that we are early in our efforts. We're in the launch phase as an office. I am a year and a half into my role, and I've been working on CI for less than a year. And we're supposed to talk about our challenges. And my first challenge is that I'm not an analyst, and I have no formal training in the proper way to do this. And I know enough to know that there are better skills and better tools that could help my efforts. And I'll admit some of our outputs are right now it's reporting and it's increased visibility rather than true, insightful, competitive intelligence. But I know that, and I think we're working on that effort. And I've loved my new role here, and I enjoy CI, but my primary challenge is just finding the time to do CI with the other responsibilities that I have. So I'm hoping that this effort grows here. We're kind of at the bottom of this climbing wall, and we aspirationally would like to be closer to the middle or the top. And so thanks for your time. Thanks for coming today, and I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlie Fraioli. I'm the Research Intelligence Analyst at Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're an R1 institution as of 2018. And I am also relatively new to the strategic intelligence field. I joined Drexel and research development in October of 2022. So just to give you a little bit of context about what research development looks like at Drexel, if we go to the next slide, its foundations go all the way back to 2016, and my boss, Gwen Grasberger, who leads our team, started kind of planting the seeds for a dedicated research development function. And it was a gradual process over those years, building relationships, kind of advocating for what research development can bring to the university. And eventually that led to our team forming in 2022. We're embedded in the Central Office of Research and Innovation at the university, currently with 4 full-time staff and 2 undergraduate student co-ops. So myself and one of those co-ops are primarily focused on strategic intelligence or competitive intelligence. So a bit about that kind of function, if we go to the next slide. We're a new research development team, and this function is also new. So we're building the ship and we're also launching it at the same time. Over the last year and a half that I've been here, these are some of the questions that we've sought out to answer, looking at particular strategic research areas that the university has kind of defined. Those have been kind of a North Star, and then within those areas, assessing the external landscape, trying to anticipate where is this topic heading in the future, and then tying that into what are Drexel's unique strengths, how do they match up with what the future looks like, as well as what is the funding outlook for that topic. We're primarily focused on federal opportunities. We've also worked with, we're working with a few interdisciplinary research teams where we're assessing their readiness to compete successfully for large, complex federal funding opportunities. So that's been another question that we've been addressing, as well as numerous requests from leadership or other offices at the university asking, do we have anyone that's doing research on this topic that might be a good fit for this opportunity or this partnership? Looking at also like externally, whether that's for recruitment candidates in strategic areas or external collaborators for specific projects. Those have been some of the main requests that come through our office. And those questions can be addressed through a variety of deliverables and outputs depending on the audience, depending on how much time we have, everything from full narrative reports with data visualizations to PowerPoint presentations, Excel workbooks, even translating some of our findings to project plans that kind of outline specific actions that faculty can take to build capacity for successful grant proposals. And there's been a number of challenges in trying to do all of this, trying to establish research development at the university. Kind of broke it up into some categories here. With respect to like the data itself, our research administration system is quite old. It was not designed with this type of function in mind. So we're actually in a process of selecting a new vendor and implementing a new system, which is a multi-year process, going to take some time before that's actually implemented. Data integration across the university as well can also be a challenge. There's a lot of different owners of different pieces of the puzzle across various offices, even across the schools and colleges. They might have kind of different ways that they're keeping track of things. And so trying to get a comprehensive picture of the university can be quite a gargantuan task. And information overload just between the internal and external information. There's a lot to parse through. You have to decide what's good enough for my objective. And then I also wanted to touch on just like the more human elements. So a new team, a new function, building relationships and establishing trust with our faculty, with our leadership is key to doing this work well. And our team has done a pretty good job at that, but it is a challenge in the sense that it's gradual. And as an analyst, I want to hit the ground running and start producing deliverables and analyzing information, but really this is important. Establishing trust makes it a lot easier to deliver those hard truths when your findings might not be what people want to hear necessarily. How do you communicate those in an empathetic way? And how do you, try to influence and shape a culture of data-informed decision-making, particularly when you're not the ones making the decisions? So I'll leave it at that. Capacity, Jill touched on that. I think that's going to be a challenge for everyone. And yeah, I'll hand it off to Jennifer, I think it's next.
Thanks, Charlie. I think you made some points that all of us can already very much resonate with. So yeah, appreciate a lot of what you touched on there. So yeah, I already introduced myself. I'm Jennifer, but I am the Director of Research Development at UCLA's Sustainable LA Grand Challenge. Before coming to UCLA in 2020, I had the privilege of working alongside Karen at ASU, where I got my first exposure to competitive intelligence or strategic intelligence. But also realizing the power of research analytics, working alongside Hansa McGee, who you'll hear from later. We're really glad to have her on this panel as well. They both significantly influenced how I approach strategic intelligence, even though I have zero of those resources here at UCLA. But knowing that they could exist has really informed my approaches and how I do a lot of things. So on the next slide, I will tell you a little bit more about us. We are a standalone initiative. We are chancellor funded. We serve to stand up strategic sustainability initiatives that are societally relevant and impactful, but they need to be rooted in interdisciplinary, interinstitutional, and cross-sector collaboration. That's a pretty big ask, but it needs to check all those boxes. We sit under the Vice Chancellor of Research, who in our institution is essentially the head of research. We work with all disciplines and ranks at UCLA for researchers, and we spend a lot of our time brokering relationships with local, regional, state, and federal stakeholders. But all of this is still very much trying to drive forward research agendas and extramural funding, securing extramural funding. We're currently a team of 3 staff and 5 student workers. We are in total a research development unit, but really because of my influence, I think working at UCLA or at ASU, a lot of what drives our research development is strategic intelligence, which is mostly done by our student workers, the intel gathering. We're building up to be a staff of 7, which isn't necessarily all research development folks, but communications and a lot of the other operational sort of side of the house. And we'll probably end up with about 10 student workers. So let's see on the next slide. Quick timeline, I started at UCLA in 2020. By 2021, I convinced my leadership to let me hire a proposal development manager and an information analyst. By 2022, we delivered some of our first strategic intelligence products. One of those was a relational database that we don't share openly, but that we have built that allows us to continue to track and relate all of the sorts of information that we mine, but really looking at our experts and how the relationships they have with different topics and different stakeholders. We also delivered something that's similar to what I know Karen's team has presented on before with these capacity reports, but in this case, we delivered it to LA's Department of Power and Water, which is one of the largest public utilities in the world. They are on a quest to convert to 100% renewables with equity at the forefront. And they were working with a national lab, and I said, you know what, I feel like UCLA could really bring some ground truthing to that project. And so we developed a capacity report, delivered it to them, just showcasing the faculty that we have and the sort of work that they do, and that resulted in a $3 million, like overnight, a $3 million award to UCLA to do work on that. And we're actually in conversation now for our second phases of how we'll continue to support that effort. And so now we're at 2024. We've actually gone through some major leadership changes, and so, but thankfully at this point, our strategic intelligence has continued to gain confidence and trust with people at the university. So we're now just kind of at the point where we're hitting our stride and understanding what we're doing, how we do it, and what our products are. So on the next slide, our main functions is landscape surveillance. We surveillance these different landscapes to support strategic decision-making, to support programmatic priorities, mostly for us, but we're also supporting other units and university leadership and making sure things are coordinated. But largely when we're doing these landscape analyses, we seek to understand social, political, and intellectual narratives. And then we are also looking for overlaying that with funding trends and forecasts. Some examples in general is we're always watching the UCLA faculty. And we do this by working with our analysts, because I have worked with experts in every tool out there, and I can't tell you how often I get false positives or misinformation. So we always actually check and do our own research on a lot of this. Broader academic research community, and then again, local, regional, state, and federal landscapes. We are developing processes for stakeholder mapping and network analyses that'll really, again, leveraging that relational database lets us see some of those real life relationships. This is really helpful since a lot of what we work with is semantic data. And so the relational database has been really, really helpful in that. And I mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of time knowledge brokering. And so this is just aligning interests, ambitions of our researchers and our stakeholders, but really what we're trying to work for is creating spaces for balanced knowledge exchange and fruitful, respectful partnerships. The next slide, please. Our products, the relational database, network analyses, we do reports, briefings, we develop and execute collaborative meetings and workshops. We develop stakeholder engagement strategies and we play a pretty critical role. Like, we don't just hand them off, we do a lot of facilitation in that. And we also are starting to use public-facing events to try and make sure that we're using more like communication style, like campaigns, to raise awareness about some of the issues we're working on. And next slide, please. Challenges, I mentioned we have 0. We have no research data analytics here at UCLA. I mean, and maybe that's just because I'm comparing it to what I'm used to at ASU, but none. I have no access to research performance data. It's considered proprietary information. I can see awards only. I don't think I need to tell anybody on this call how not helpful that is. And we have major barriers with university procurement. UCLA is extremely archaic and adverse to us investing in software and tools and subscriptions to anything. So it's literally human, like I can buy students, that's about it. And then we have just, because of that, challenges in information capture and management strategies, keeping the data up to date. But again, it's possible. And so happy to talk to anybody else who finds themselves in similar situations. I will say that investing in our student workforce has been a really positive experience for us. I like mentoring students. I miss teaching. So I still get to do that. And also really, really enjoy seeing how this sets up our students to competitively position themselves for next steps. And so with that, I'll stop and we can turn over to some questions. I don't know, maybe, yeah, Q&A. Would love to hear from you guys for maybe the next 10 minutes. I just sure there's some questions that popped up. That was a lot of information that we just threw at you, but yeah, oh yes, Bridget.
I would love to hear, a few of you mentioned a student workforce in your offices, and I'd love to hear how you guys are utilizing the students and what that looks like in terms of training and sort of how often they're working and like what value they're providing in these areas.
So yeah, I can jump in at least for us. Right now we have 5 student workers. We've trained each one of them as analysts, and we try to have them staggered in terms of when we hire them. So we're not having to train an entire workforce at once, and they can kind of co-train each other, which has been also a really helpful model even for them in developing some leadership skills. They don't leave. We hire them as usually sophomores for our undergrads and second year or PhD candidates for our graduate students. We find that our PhD actually being on track for candidacy is really important for our graduate students, so they're not distracted with trying to figure all that stuff out they figure out their first couple of years. And then other than that, it's just been us teaching them, sitting with them, working with them, and then giving them assignments and giving them feedback on it's almost like a research group space where we have our strategic meetings and we talk through what they found and what they're thinking, and just ask them more questions to really encourage them to think critically. So we're just kind of training them with that analyst sort of mindset of really interrogating and probing deeper. So yeah, that's for us at UCLA.
Yeah, and I can speak briefly. Drexel, is kind of known for its co-op program. So it's part of the undergraduate curriculum. Students complete 1 to 3 6-month co-ops during their time at Drexel. So we have co-ops for 6 months at a time. They work full time. It is, it does mean that there's a lot of turnover. So you have to kind of like train a new person every 6 months. But I really try to, I also, like Jennifer, enjoy kind of mentoring. So we try to kind of cater the specific tasks and projects that they're working on to their interests. So a lot of the time that's, data related skills and tasks, and especially given, the complexity and some of the like data quality issues we have with internal stuff, it's helpful to have like additional support, cleaning and structuring things, and then doing that analysis component as well.
Yeah, hey, at Iowa, I have 4 student workers. They're part-time, and I mostly use them, like, truthfully, they're better with AI than I am, because they literally have this taught to them, which is so cool. It wasn't even a thing when I was in school. So we use them to help generate data. Sometimes I've also used student workers to help proof stuff, and I've used student workers to help validate what AI returns also, and check just like some of the time consuming stuff that that I don't want to do as much of.
Yeah, and I see a question about recruiting specific students. For us, yes and no. It depends on if we see that we're having gaps on our team. So we did recently just recruit somebody who has served with an assembly person here in California, because we really felt like we had a gap in somebody who could read policy and do and really quickly interpret regulatory relationships across the landscape. That's been wonderful because she gets it so fast, faster than any of us who don't have training in that. We do have a data science student who does help us with some of our relational database things and our queries and making sure that our data is clean and easy to analyze. But otherwise, aside from some of those more technical functions, I agree with what Jill said around interests. And we really hire less about technical and more about how do you self-teach? Are you a self-starter? Like, do you just stop and wait for me to tell you what to do if you can't figure something out? And so we really hire for a certain sort of personality type, and that has proven to be really, really helpful and congruent across the team, despite interests. I also see a lot of questions about the relational database, so I'll just say, and I know that I think it's Juliana, she's here somewhere. Yeah, there you are. I see you. She and I go way back on this conversation, and so we've tried a lot of different things. And I know Alba is also commenting on it. Alba has been an inspiration, I think, when I first started getting exposure to this group for the way that she thinks and analyzes data. I was like, I need to get a tool to help me with that because I don't think like she does. We use Airtable. I have talked to computer scientists and engineers. I have tried to build things. I've hired graduate students. I have found Airtable to be the best tool for our uses because we do so much with semantic data as opposed to quantitative data. And that's been a wonderful tool if your university lets you buy it, because I built it up for 3 years and then I couldn't renew my subscription. And I am praying that I get to do that by the end of this year. I've been without it for a year, but that's been an incredible tool. And you can export into Tableau and other things to create visualizations, but it's been really, really phenomenal to be able to link things and have one input for your data that updates everything in real time. So you can try Airtable for free. It's not the same, just so you know. Like, there's limitations on it, but it's still wonderful for free. That's how I started off on it. But once you get into the pro or the enterprise levels, there's whole different accesses in terms of how you can link bases versus tables and data security and privacy and support automations, things like that are really helpful. But okay, any other questions? I know that there's also going to be a seminar coming up on tools that I'm looking forward to hearing about some of the different tools everybody's using. And I'm always happy and would be happy to have more of a ongoing conversation with people who are trying to crack this challenge with relating data and keeping it up to date. So that's something that I'm happy to sidebar about. With no more questions, we can go ahead and move on to Bridget Hughes.
Hi, so thank you, Jennifer and Jill, for organizing this panel. So I'm Bridget. I work at the University of Utah Health. And so at our health sciences, we're a $520 million research enterprise over the last year. The University of Utah as a whole is a Research One institution. And when we talk about University of Utah Health, we always say that we're the only academic medical center in our region, and we provide care to over 10% of the continental US by landmass. So like that's, if you look at us on a map, we're pretty geographically isolated. Okay, so next slide. So our office structure, our program development team is embedded in our central research office on our health sciences campus. Research development across the University of Utah is embedded in different areas. Our main VPR office has a research development function. But our team on the health sciences, we currently have 10 team members on our team overall. And the main function of our team is really to support strategic research initiatives for our health sciences campus in multiple different areas. We also have capacity in the team science grant development, honorific awards. And then now, as we're talking about today, we're developing our strategic intelligence capacity. So we going to talk a little bit about how our CI was established. So I would say about 5 to 7 years ago, I learned about CI through NORDIP. Seeing presentations by members of ASU in various areas and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cool. These analytics that people are doing and the competitive intelligence aspects, I'm thinking it's really, really interesting. And about 3 years ago, my colleague Nicole Frank and I were like, okay, like we got to start doing this. Like we are going to be left behind if the University of Utah does not start investing in this capabilities, because it wasn't clear to us that anybody was doing this across our institution. And so we really use the NORDIP network to learn more about competitive intelligence. I was very fortunate to be paired through the mentoring program with Jamie Burns, who was at ASU at the time. And that gave me a venue to sort of talk a little bit more about this. I joined the competitive intelligence working group, watched all of ASU's videos, really tried to learn a bit more about what this was all about. We took the Strategic Consortium of Intelligence Professionals training, started testing new tools, and was able to bring a new tool to the university. And then my colleague Nicole and I sat down and was like, okay, let's really try to do some of these analysis, and performed a couple of preliminary analysis that we were able to present to senior leadership. And this was a competitive analysis for a federal funding opportunity in one of our strategic spaces in a landscape of research in a different space. And we were able to present that to our associate vice president for research, and who absolutely loved it, thought this was great. And he gave us a forum to present this analysis to our senior research council. And the feedback that we got from senior leaders across the institution was really, really strong. And there was broad enthusiasm to develop this capacity very aggressively within our institution. And so fast forward, a little bit later, and we got the approval to hire a strategic intelligence analyst. So we hired somebody last June. Jason Lyons was hired, and he's actually going to be running the panel on May 15th on navigating data tools and sources and competitive intelligence. So I'm encouraging everybody to apply for that or to attend that. So that was really cool. We were able to get the buy-in from senior leadership to hire somebody to really spearhead this effort. And so Jason's been here since June. And so I would say right now, the state of our infrastructure is really in understanding the tools and resources available, developing and refining methodologies in our processes, and producing some reports to date, and then really determining how to best present the data that makes sense for the client. And then, of course, we're starting, now that the word is out across the institution, we're starting to really get a lot more requests for analysis. So next slide. So questions that our team addresses are very broad. So identifying broadly areas of research strength in our capacity, understanding the external research landscape in a particular research area. And of course, then how does the University of Utah compare? And this is pretty similar, I think, to what everybody else is talking about. Understanding competitiveness for funding programs and how to best position for success. Forecasting future funding opportunities and presenting that information more broadly so people can be aware of sort of what's going to be on the coming out. We sometimes work with departments and advise them on how to best align with federal funding agencies. And then two other areas that we've been focusing on more recently is identifying potential candidates for award nominations and candidates for faculty recruitment. And I would say the products and outputs are very similar to what everybody else is saying. Reports, presentations, slides, and sometimes just like a simple Excel spreadsheet will provide to people. And I think this is an area that we're actively working on. And so in terms of challenges, I was just talking to Jason this morning about it. And I think when they talk about CI, the common term is it's perspective, not precision, and trying to find the balance between that and having leadership and the client understand that what we're doing is providing perspective and not precision, because there's so much data that can be analyzed and so many different ways of analyzing the data. And of course, academics like data and they want to see the data. And sometimes you have to, as Charlie mentioned, how much, what is enough? How deep do we need to go to make a point? And then and it's easy to fall down into a rabbit hole. And And I always tell my colleagues as we're working on this of like, you guys get me out of the rabbit hole because I'm going to dive down that hole. I need someone to hold me back. Otherwise, like you're going to waste a lot of time going down these holes and these pathways that we don't need, that aren't going to be all that fruitful. And I think another big challenge is like developing the products that provide value to customers and educating clients on the capabilities and limits of these products. So I think that's one key area as well. All right, I think that's it from me. I think we'll turn it over to the next person.
Yeah, and I think we can all chuckle at Elvis' comment that they like data as long as it's good. Lisa Nenstad is going to be our next presenter. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Nanstead. I'm a research development strategist at University of Colorado Boulder. And I want to thank Jill and Jennifer for organizing this, and especially thank Karen Walker for so many opportunities over the years to learn about CI and how to develop programming in CI at my institution. So I work in the Research and Innovation Office at CU Boulder, which is our central research support organization, and I'll describe that in just a minute. I've been in my current role for about 3 years, and I'm fortunate to work with an outstanding and collegial team of RD professionals, about 10 of them, led by Karen Regan, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Research, who I can describe as a visionary leader and huge advocate for using data to inform strategy and decision-making, which makes me feel very lucky. My academic background is in library and information science, and professionally I specialize in interdisciplinary research with a focus on translational biomedical and bioengineering research. And I've been in RD about 30 years in various positions at national laboratories, kind of quasi-academic environments, and public and private R1 universities around the country. I've worn a lot of different hats, everything from strategic planning to managing major research enterprise expansions and consolidations and mergers in academia, faculty development, recruitment, operations, foundation, industry relations, and a lot of other stuff. But what I've discovered is that in my current role, my small 30% allocation to strategic intelligence is how we describe it, it's really a great opportunity to bring so many of my interests and strengths together. So very, very pleased to be working in this area. Next slide. So the University of Colorado Boulder is an R1 public research university and is the flagship campus of University of Colorado. It's also one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever worked on, and I welcome any of you who want to come visit. Look me up, and if I'm around, I can take you on a hike or into our beautiful wilderness. We have about 3,000 tenure track faculty and other researchers across 7 colleges and schools. We are the #1 public research university recipient of NASA research funding, and we're among the top 10 universities for NSF funding. And we are a top non-medical school recipient of NIH funding. You know, our medical school, we have 4 campuses, and our medical school is actually separate from us. We have engineering, law, arts and sciences, music, education, business, and in Denver, which is 45 miles away, is our medical campus, which encompasses our public health school and all of our medical schools and colleges. So as I mentioned, research support at my campus is consolidated in the Research and Innovation Office and led by our Vice Chancellor, who reports directly to the Chancellor. The office has the university itself has a very interdisciplinary, collaborative culture, and our office it's very enterprise approach, extremely collegial, and sort of an all hands on deck. We reach across units and refer our faculty to different parts of the Research Innovation Office, which we call RIO. And Karen Regan, my boss, started constructing the RD group about 10 years ago. We now have about 10 RD professionals who manage things there in that box: limited submissions, faculty development, research infrastructure, proposal development, that kind of thing. So when Karen recruited me, I was the first and only person tasked with strategic intelligence and developing programming in that area. So Karen and I are the only ones working in this. We don't have any students. There are no other staff. So one thing I did right off the bat, the first year I was in this role, was to, I know the faculty really well on this campus. I've been here since 2016 and have been working in, I was at an institute as a director of research, interdisciplinary research, prior to this role. And so I know a lot of people, and I know those working in network analysis, modeling, and different advanced computation, and then also, of course, data science. And I started reaching out to some of our faculty to find out, what could you help me think about how, what our needs might be. And also we have an Office of Data Analytics, which houses our institutional research and reporting analytics groups, and they specialize in data collection, analysis, and visualization, and make a lot of tools available. So if we could go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the first year of my job, boy, it was really sort of a slow start. I needed to understand my university in a whole new way. I really didn't, I had this sense that we were describing our strengths and they were perceived strengths, because I never really saw the data to back it up. And so I first did sort of a SWOT analysis, and I wanted to find out who's doing what and what our capacity, looking at our, developing asset maps and so forth. And then also finding out who on this planet is doing CI or SI, who's doing it well, and what can I learn from them. That's how I met Karen Walker, thank goodness, who I've learned so much from. And looking at the literature, and then trying to figure out what are the top needs of our campus. And I discovered, as I did sort of these queries, that one thing that was really important was to understand when there was a proposed question, for example, I'd like to make a data-informed decision on X, to really understand who was asking the question, what the question really, what the implications were, what kind of intelligence was required, what kind of analysis would be required, and what they were going to do with that data. So this slide kind of lists some of the questions that were asked during those early phases. And just in, the past year or so, I just decided, I think I was really reluctant to just dive in and do this. I felt like, I was kind of spinning my wheels, making lists of data sources and what they did and exploring them, and how can I do the analyses that's right for this question, and how can I present the data in a way that's not like, instead of just diving in and doing that. So I did dive in, and one of the first questions was that I found really where I could have an impact, where the strategic intelligence provided information used to decide on something, was that second question there from our Vice Chancellor for Research. Should we develop a new special funding track in our internal seed grant program? So my interest in positioning our campus for success with external funders, of course, we're all interested in doing that. I run a seed grant program, and so I came up with a list of topics that we might benefit from if we developed special tracks and gave seed grant funding to teams, not just doing biomedical or bioengineering research generally, but what would it be like if we were able to seed research in this area where it looks like we have capacity and strength, and there are external opportunities emerging, like climate change and health is one example. And this is about 1.5 years ago, we were looking at that, or AI and health. And so I did my first kind of capacity analysis and landscape analysis. and dug pretty deep. And those first reports were pretty long, even though the executive summary was somewhat useful. I found that I needed to improve my visualization and so forth. So I learned a lot just by doing, and have been able to provide reports that have also proven to be useful. So next slide. So some of the challenges I face, I've sort of alluded to, making time to learn as you are implementing it. For me, I really want to improve the efficiency in my data collection. I'm always looking for better and faster ways. I feel like data sources are everywhere. If you pay attention, if you're a curious person like I am, I'm reading all the time. I'm noticing cues and what the White House or Congress or our government is going to do, and also just seeking it out from reading strategic program reports and a lot of other kinds, attending a lot of webinars and those kinds of things. What's going to happen next, and how can I develop my crystal ball? Also trying to figure out how to use AI better, like to sift through information more rapidly, to summarize and synthesize and pull out important bits and pieces, and then of course validate and include that data. So I'm naturally inclined to gather data and organize information. I'm a librarian, information scientist in my core, and so, but the analysis piece has been more challenging. Finding the right analytical tools and the right approaches. Right now, I'm increasing my strength and skill in visualization, because I really think our researchers and our leaders respond a lot better to dashboards and visualizations than they do from 20-page report.
That's a really great point. Thank you, Lisa. I think that's a perfect segue to Hansa, who I can certainly credit for putting together some beautiful dashboards. So thank you so much for all of that information. Hansa and Sabrina are co-presenting from University of Missouri.
Hello all, I'm Sabrina Wu. I'm a data analyst for the University of Missouri, Columbia, which is the flagship campus for the University of Missouri system. And we are an R1 institution as well as part of the AAU. I will be presenting these slides today, but my director, Dr. Hansa McGee, is also on this call, so she'll be able to answer any questions that you have in the chat. And I also wanted to thank the presenters, the hosts, Jill, Jennifer, and Dr. Karen Walker for hosting this webinar. We really appreciate the chance to attend. Next slide. So the research analytics team falls under a larger branch, the Division of Research, Innovation, and Impact, which is then led by our Associate Vice Chancellor, Dr. Susan Renaud. And within this unit, there are a variety of departments, about 20 to 25 people, all focused on research development. So this will include our sister teams, the Strategic Proposal Development Service. They work on large, very competitive proposals center-wide, as well as the connector, which is based off of broader impacts, and as well as faculty and professional development. So we can see the research analytics falls right there. We work very closely with our sister departments, and we produce the research analytics reports for just the flagship campus. There may be some other analytics teams in finance, but or IT, but we reside solely in the Division of Research, Innovation, and Impact. Additionally, our team specifically is composed of one director, Dr. Hansa McGee, as well as 3 analysts. We do not have any student workers currently, but we're flexible on additions. We are thinking about hiring one for a temporary public-facing event, but student workers added on for internships is still on our mind. Research analytics in general performs all of the standardized sponsored projects reporting for the campus, and our competitive intelligence falls under one of those, is one of our duties out of our entire team for analytical reporting. Our entire team works collaboratively on competitive intelligence, and we also get input from our sister departments. Next slide. So our research analytics outputs, fixing the box. So our research analytics outputs. So our team has been hired to do research analytics for about 2 years, a little bit under 2 years. And starting research analytics from scratch, not from scratch, but as a templated and standardized product was one of our biggest challenges. But we came up with a process, data collection, analysis, and interpretation. And just like Lisa, we kind of dove into creating these CI reports for leadership. It was more of a top-down approach of leadership and the senior leadership and the president wanting to really expand our research capacity and finding the opportunity to do that. So we get a lot of requests from our leadership for specific funding opportunities, large-scale federal, or about the large-scale federal funding landscape, what our strengths and weaknesses are. But we also work heavily with staff and faculty for regular research analytics reporting, and then also staff for specifically CI analysis, like program analysis. What is a specific program? And am I competitive for it? How can I grow my network? We have created interactive reports as well as static reports. And it's interesting that I think Lisa mentioned that her leadership enjoys interactive reports, but actually our leadership prefers static reports, easily printable, but staff and faculty enjoy working with the interactive dashboard. So we have a variety of both. To create these reports, we had to go through a very lengthy kind of templating and review process, but we're lucky to have more analysts on the team that are familiar with programming and using different analytical functions. We also have leadership buy-in, so we're able to get subscription products like Dimensions and their Dimensions API access. We have familiarity with R, Python, Power BI, all those other kinds of tools for CI. So the maturity of our office is we're still developing CI, but we're getting to the point where we can create annual reports. Yes, Dimensions is great. Where we can create annual reports and then update them for the next annual ones. We're also looking to be more proactive in the federal landscape analysis perspective, because being informed about what's going on at the political level is of importance to us when it comes to CI. Next slide. So some other challenges, specifically for competitive intelligence, it's diving into those public data sources, especially if the internal data. I know some other CI professionals have talked about access to getting internal sponsored projects data, internal awards proposals. We're lucky that that Dr. McGee has put in a lot of effort into the infrastructure. She says her favorite metaphor is that the research analytics is like building a house. You have to have that. You have to have the foundation. You have to have the walls, the windows before you put in the furniture. And so our walls, our foundation was getting that standardized reporting, being able to access the financial systems, the HR systems at our university, and then CI is all that additional space and furniture. You know, after we have the base data sets, we are able to incorporate our internal data into CI and make that a better service, a better product. We also had limited bandwidth. We started with a small team, but now that we have more analysts and we have a wider spread of the workload for CI, as well as finally finishing that kind of base infrastructure, data infrastructure, it's gone a lot better. So those are all the challenges that we experienced developing CI at our institution. Me and Dr. McGee are interested in collaborating with other people about CI. So if you ever want to reach out, please let us know, and maybe we can make another panel or webinar just like this. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's presented today. We have a few minutes left if there's any questions, but just want to make sure we're at least ending on the note that I think you've heard again and again and again from every presenter. We're really excited to see this community growing, and we know that this is just a cross section of the different CI functions and the ways that these different teams are being built, and would really love direct collaboration with anyone who is looking for a soundboard or just somebody else to brainstorm with on some of the ways that you guys are trying to stand up competitive intelligence and strategic intelligence at Share Initiative. And also want to thank you, Karen Walker, for really, I think, founding this group in that collaborative spirit. So yeah, thank you guys for participating. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day.
I just want to remind everybody that next month we'll also have another presentation on using tools and resources, and Jason Lyons is going to be presenting that one with some panelists. So thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll put this recording out to everybody to register today. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.